Good morning. Hope everybody's having a good morning. I'm not even sure what date this is. It is, let's see, it's Wednesday, October the 18th. My mom passed away on October the 12th. And she died peacefully in her sleep. That was on last Thursday morning. On Tuesday, before that, the doctor had called and said her white count at 84,000 meant that she had days to weeks. And if you go back and look at a couple of shorts ago, I had just posted on Sunday where we had gotten her shower and got her in the chair. She was out of the bed that day, and up until Tuesday, she was doing okay. But she was having pain. That was the last few days. She had pain in her upper abdomen, diaphragm, sternum, and the doctor said it was the spleen enlarging from the leukemia. She had acute myeloid leukemia. She had had it since July the 22nd of 2022. They told us then that if we did nothing, that she would have weeks to live. So they tried an aggressive chemo. She couldn't tolerate it. And my mother has mild dementia, so it was going to make it even harder because she would have to stay in the hospital for a long period of time. She had really bad sundowner syndrome. So she ended up going to a pill, Zospata, and taking that pill, which is similar to a chemo, but it's not, the doctor called it chemo, but it's not necessarily a chemo. All this to say that it did her really well. She had some really, really good results from Zospata somewhere around January of 2023. She asked the doctor herself, was she in remission? And he told her yes. And she did really good up until May. Her blood work was a little weird. We came back in July. It was still a little weird. Her numbers weren't where the doctor wanted them. And I'm not going to get into specifics because honestly, I can't remember. And it doesn't matter. In July, he said, you know what, come back in 2 weeks. Maybe you've got something viral going on. We'll see. Went back in 2 weeks. He said, no, we're going to have to do another bone marrow biopsy. It looks like we need to rule out whether the leukemia is doing this or there's something else. So she had a bone marrow biopsy. That puts us around the beginning of August. It was the leukemia that was back. It wasn't raging, was his terms, but it was back. Sent her home, or she was at home, and come back in a couple of weeks. Well, before that 2 weeks was up, we made several trips to the emergency room with vomiting and dehydration. Mother just basically had a failure to thrive. She wouldn't eat. She wasn't small by any means, but I'm telling you, there's just some of us that are meant to be big people. And some of us, people are like, well, you look fine. You look healthy. Yeah, but you don't know what's going on the inside. Again, doesn't matter. She had a bad enough fall. Well, she fell 3 times in one day that she tore her arm really bad. Skin tear all the way down one of her arms. It was her right arm. A friend at the apartments where she lived followed the ambulance over to the emergency room. They treated her arm, sent her back home. The next morning, I went over to her apartment and I said, this was on a Monday, and I said, let's get you up and get you to Dr. I'm not going to say his name, but get you to the cancer doctor and get you some fluids. So I put in a call to their office because they were absolutely phenomenal. The best people I have ever met in my life. They treated us with the utmost respect. They treated her with so much care. They allowed her to keep as much quality of life as she could. So as we got her up, she started throwing up, and I had the doctor's nurse on the phone, and she said, "Friend, you need to take her to the ER locally. She's not able to make that trip to Nashville." So I did. I took her over to the emergency room, was able to get her in the car, and we got in the emergency room, and I explained to him what was going on. And I expected the blood work to be bad. Well, she ended up needing like 3 units of blood and a bag of platelets, but we didn't get them there because it was basically a true clinical emergency ER where they didn't have blood on hand, only for car wrecks and things like that. So they went ahead and started a unit of packed red blood cells. They transferred her to a Nashville hospital where her cancer doctor was at. He admitted her. So we were there for 4 days number one, we were waiting on the pathology to come back to see if there possibly was any medicine that would work for her recurrence, her relapse. And during that time, Mother was so weak. She got 3 units of packed red blood cells over the course of those 4 days, and then 1 unit of platelets, because her platelets were below 10,000. But anyway, I wasn't going to talk specifics on numbers because I just can't remember everything. We decided at that point she was so weak she needed to go to the nursing home, which was absolutely the hardest decision I had to make in my life. Got her to the nursing home for her safety to get some rehab. Of course, she didn't like it there, but she tolerated it. She stayed there from August the 31st until October the 4th. On October the 4th, of course, we knew it was coming. It was time for her to be discharged home. She was going to go home with home health, and she did. She went home with home health to continue rehab and to draw the blood work on Mondays to let the doctor know how things were going. Well, the first labs they drew that following Monday, her white count was 84,000. And, I'm pretty much hands-on, so I asked them to call me with the results, and when they did, I really broke down because I knew what it meant. I knew that we were at the end. I called the nurse at the cancer doctor, and she talked to me, passionately explained what was going on, and kindly. The following day, about 1:40 in the afternoon, the doctor called me and explained to me, because he had always told me, "Sweetie, it's sunshine and roses until I tell you it's not." And he called to tell me that we were no longer sunshine and roses, that she needed to go on hospice, that she had days to weeks. And I understood, and I had already been at Mother's that day, so I called and I FaceTimed her, and we talked through it, because Mother never wanted anything done behind her back. And she said, okay. So the hospice that he referred us to didn't come to her area. She lives in a very small town. I knew who I wanted. Somebody I felt very comfortable with. Hometown girl. Her company came. So this was on Tuesday afternoon that I had the call with the doctor. And on Wednesday morning, they weren't going to come until Thursday because they had 2 patients they had to admit on Wednesday. Wednesday morning I went. This was last Wednesday, October the 11th. That morning I went, and Mama was just really, really hurting. And I was going through some apartment recertification for her and things like that. So basically my plate was kind of full that day. But I knew what I couldn't do was let them wait until Thursday to come. So I called hospice and told them, you have to come today or never. And of course they accommodated. The administrator came and admitted Mother herself. I wasn't there during that time, but Mother's friend was. Mother's friend, who I will never be able to repay. She stayed for 4 hours that day with Mother. They got her admitted to hospice. I went and met with her that afternoon, Wednesday afternoon, signed all Mother's paperwork. They called in a pain patch, whatever she needed for pain, for me to have on hand as we progressed through this journey. Wednesday afternoon, after I got off work and signed those papers, I went back to Mother's little small town and talked with her. She said, well, when am I going to get something for pain? I'm really hurt. And I said, well, when the pharmacy has it filled, I'm going to run over and get it. And she said, well, help me up to the bathroom. Okay, so we got up, we went to the bathroom. When she went to go back to the bedroom, she just almost got down on me, and it was extremely scary. I talked really loud, Mother, please raise yourself up. You've got to help me. She just was like leaned over, bent over at the waist, and her arms hanging down. And she got up enough strength to stand up straight, and I just basically, slung her over into the bed and got her comfortable. And she was pretty flipped out a little bit about that. Her eyes were weird. I said, Mama, your eyes look so strange. She said, well, I've been seeing these circles, these circles. And I said, well, Mama, that must have something to do with the cancer. I don't understand what that means. But anyway, let me go get your pain medicine and I'll be back. I came back. Was only gone a few minutes. Put her pain patch on her. Went in the living room. You could just tell she was just exhausted. And she only lived in 500 square foot apartment. So to be in her bedroom was extremely claustrophobic for me, which is where we had the hospital bed. So I got up out of the wheelchair that was in her room and went and sat in the living room and prayed and talked through things with God. And just in a minute, one of Mother's neighbor's daughter, who had sat with Mother before, came and sat and talked with me for a while. And I said, I'm going to have to get some sitters for her. They told me that when she gets where she can't get out of the bed, I had to have somebody that stays with her. And so she was helping me brainstorm, and we cried together, and we talked through everything. And we're going to come up with a plan the next day. Again, this is still Wednesday evening, about 4:30, I guess, 5 o'clock in the evening. We said our goodbyes. She didn't go in and talk to Mother because Mother was just ill, I guess you would say, just tired, exhausted, sick of company. So I went in and sat with her, and I said, now, Mama, it's been about an hour since we put that pain patch on you. How do you feel? She said, I have no pain. And I thought to myself, well, the pain patch hasn't worked that quickly. But anyway, okay. I said, that's good. And I lotioned her arms, her hands, lotioned both legs, turned her socks around where they were comfy on her feet. Stayed just a little while longer. And I said, Mama, you're sick of all this company, aren't you? She said, pretty much. Pretty much. And she turned over and had me rub her back. I said, well, I'm going to go. I said, David will be here in a little while. She said, okay. And David was my brother. David came later that night. I think she may have had another company, a person from the apartments that came to visit her, a friend. David came that night and asked what could he do for her. And she said, just rub my back and sit here with me for a minute. So he did. He stayed with her a pretty good while, rubbed her back. She turned over and she said, going home, turn the lights out and going home. She hated my mother had so many lamps. And when I would walk in, I'd turn on all the lamps. But when my brother would come in, I guess he kind of kept it quiet. But there was some of the lamps on. So she said, turn off all the lights, go home. He did. Of course, Mother's little dog was with her. He stayed with her in the apartment. That was One of her biggest desires was to be home in her apartment with her little dog. David probably left sometime right before 8 that night. Mother had, to my knowledge, no other visitors that night. I went in the next morning, and she was gone. And Dobby was there with her dog. And she was just laid in the bed asleep. It looked like she was asleep, but I knew, I've witnessed many, many deaths. I knew she was gone, and I lost my mind. I lost my best friend, my mother. And it's a pain like none I've ever had before. And she got what she wanted. She wanted to go peacefully in her home with her dog. And she had even texted me, this was back in September, if you don't want to be with me, don't leave me in the nursing home. Just let me go to my apartment and die alone. I never intended for that to happen, for her to die alone. But it was between her and God that she be alone. And she's in a good place now. My mother was a very God-fearing Christian woman who did many good works. And she taught me so much about how to love people, and that people really only want love. If there's ever one thing a person really needs, it's just love. So she was buried on the 15th, and like I said, I think this is the 18th. I really don't even know what day this is. And I am continuing to grieve her. I'll never be the same. I'm going to put my puzzle pieces back together, but they're all going to look different. And just know that you're not alone. If you've gone through this and you're watching this video, you're not alone. And I don't know when comfort will come. I don't know when peace will come, but I know it will come because I have faith in God. And I know this is a sad, emotional video, but, you know, if it helps someone to learn what my experience was, then that's helped enough. And I hope you have a good day. Thank you.